I shouldn't be here, he said, but he didn't step back. A slow blink. Her eyes, lined with fine tension, didn't flinch. You already are. The hallway was too quiet. Outside, the street lamps flickered across empty sidewalks, but inside her townhouse, clean lines, dark oak floors, everything too neat, it felt like crossing a threshold no one talked about. Noah stood frozen in his boots, soaked from the rain. Jacket dripping, pulse hammering. Claire didn't move either. One hand still on the door. She looked at him the way someone looks at a storm they didn't order, strangely impressed, but bracing for damage. You said you left your scarf, she said at last, voice flat. I did. It's not here. I know. She stared at him. The silence bloomed into something awkward, then something heavier. And then, he stepped forward. Not a leap. Not a kiss. Just 2 inches too close. You're 21, she said. You're a kid. I'm not, he said. I haven't been for a long time. Something in her expression shifted. It was quick, but not invisible, a flicker, a glitch in the armor. He caught it. His breath caught, too. Claire backed up, brushing her hair behind her ear. She wore gray slacks and a thin black sweater that barely moved when she did, like the fabric knew better than to try. The only thing out of place was the chipped corner on her thumbnail. You were in my class 2 years ago, she said. You used to stare at the window. Not at me. The window. I was trying not to. Trying not to what? Noah looked at her like he was about to do something stupid. He'd felt it building all night, that pulse in his spine, the walk here through the rain, his hand hovering over her address in his phone, every step louder than his conscience. Now they were 2 feet apart. It was like standing too close to an open flame. Trying not to stare at you, he said. A beat passed. Then she laughed, but not the way you laugh when something's funny. More like something cracked. Jesus, she whispered. You actually said it. Noah didn't smile. You think you're the first student who's ever had a crush on me, she said. That's not special. That's cliché. I'm not your student. Not anymore. That just makes this pathetic. Then tell me to leave. He didn't blink. He meant it. She stared at him. Her lips parted like she might say something final, but then she stopped. He saw it again, that glitch. And suddenly, she wasn't just Claire the instructor, or Claire the distant intellectual. She was just Claire. Someone who looked like she hadn't let herself feel anything reckless in a long time. I don't know what this is, she muttered. He said, neither do I. Another long beat. Then, slowly, she walked past him and shut the door. The moment should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like standing on a wire. She poured herself whiskey and didn't offer him any. He peeled off his jacket, damp shirt clinging to him, and sat on the far edge of the leather couch like he might be cuffed at any moment. You're a painter now, she said without turning. That's what I heard. Trying to be. You were always good. But unfocused. Undisciplined. He snorted. You really know how to flirt. I'm not flirting. She sat down, swirling the drink, then lifted it to her lips. Noah watched her throat move as she swallowed. He looked away before it lingered too long. You don't get it, she said. You're not supposed to be here. I've already had the scandals. The rumors. The mistake students. You're 10 years too late for that chapter. Then what's this? She didn't answer. It should have ended there. It nearly did. Noah stood. I shouldn't have come. Claire didn't move. Didn't blink. Just said, "Lo, you came anyway." He stopped halfway to the door. There was something different in her voice now. Not softness. Not invitation. But weariness. Like she was tired of being strong enough to send him away. And then, as if against some inner rule, she smiled. Just once. Just slightly. And Noah really saw it, and it made him forget every rule he'd ever learned about appropriate. God, she muttered, shaking her head. Your trouble. I'm already here. She didn't argue. And that was how it started. Not with a kiss. Not with a bed. But with silence stretching between two people who had no right to want each other and chose to anyway. Noah slipped out just after 4 in the morning, still buttoning his shirt, his shoes in his hand. The floor creaked under him like it was trying to snitch, but Claire didn't wake. Or if she did, she didn't move. She had her back to him in the bed, one arm under the pillow, the other curled near her face. He stood there for a second, holding the edge of the door, staring. He didn't know what he was waiting for. Maybe her voice. Maybe a sign. Something that said this wasn't just a mistake both of them were going to pretend never happened. But the room stayed quiet, and so he left. The sun was just starting to bleed through the clouds when he reached the bus stop, shirt clinging to his back from the walk. He sat on the bench, elbows on his knees, and stared at the pavement. He didn't have a word for how he felt. Not proud. Not guilty. Just sharp. Awake. Like he'd been somewhere he wasn't supposed to be and made it out, but barely. By noon, 2 people had already commented on how tired he looked at the gallery. His boss, Garrett, gave him that raised eyebrow look from behind his laptop like he was about to say something snide, but didn't. Then, around 3 p.m., she walked in. It wasn't Claire. It was Tessa, 25, slick bob cut, assistant curator, always too cheerful, always noticing things she shouldn't. You left early last night, she said, breezing past the front desk like she'd lived there her whole life. Noah looked up from his sketchpad, heartbeat stumbling. I didn't think anyone noticed, he said. I notice everything. That's my job. She gave him a tight smile and leaned against the edge of the counter. I saw you walking out of that lecture, she added. What lecture? She narrowed her eyes slightly, the way people do when they're about to pounce on something you didn't realize you revealed. The one Claire Morgan gave. I didn't even know you two knew each other. He flipped the page of his sketchpad like that would hide something. I had her for a class once. 2 years ago. Didn't peg you as a fan of contemporary theory. I'm not. I was just curious. Tessa tilted her head. You looked more than curious. He closed the sketchbook, not gently. She blinked. Relax, I didn't mean anything. But he didn't reply. She waited a beat too long before pushing off the counter and walking toward the installation room, tapping something into her phone as she went. Noah didn't look, but he knew the feeling in his chest too well. It was the first tremor, the first crack in the door, and once people start looking, they don't stop. Claire didn't reply to his message that night. Or the next. He tried calling, just once, and got voicemail. He didn't leave one. 3 days passed like that, and by the 4th, he started wondering if she'd blocked him. He told himself he wouldn't show up again, wouldn't push it, wouldn't fall into the exact pattern she had probably been avoiding since the beginning. But by the 5th day, he was outside her building again, sitting in his car, watching the windows. She didn't open the blinds until just before midnight. He saw her shadow move behind them, slow and deliberate. Lights came on. Then off. No movement toward the door. He sat there for almost 20 minutes, doing nothing. Then he got out. This time she didn't open the door right away. He knocked once, waited. Knocked again. When she did answer, she looked exhausted. No makeup, oversized hoodie, hair pulled back. But her eyes were sharp. You can't keep showing up here, she said. You didn't answer me. I didn't want to. Then tell me it's done. She looked at him for a long time. Then stepped back and let him in. They didn't sleep together that night. They didn't kiss. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, neither touching the bottle of wine between them, and talked like the world was about to find them and take it all apart. Claire spoke slowly, like she had to drag the words out from some locked room inside her chest. I had a student once, she said. 10 years ago. He was older than you. 27, maybe. Married. We were careful. Until we weren't. Noah didn't move. He sent a letter to the department when I ended it, she continued. Said I manipulated him. Said I threatened him. None of it was true. But it didn't matter. It got around. I almost lost my position. He said nothing for a minute. Then, I'm not him. You're young. That makes you dangerous, whether you mean to be or not. I'm not trying to hurt you. No. You're just trying to make me feel again. That hit harder than anything she'd said so far. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I don't care about the age difference, he said. I don't care about what people think. That's because people don't see you the way they see me. If this comes out, I'm the one they'll turn on. I'm the one who looks like she should have known better. He nodded slowly. I know. She stared at him again, but this time something gave in her face. Not a full collapse. Just a small, unguarded shift. I missed you this week, she said quietly. His throat tightened. Then don't disappear again. Claire didn't answer. But she reached for his hand. He stayed until sunrise. They didn't talk much after that. At one point he put his head in her lap and closed his eyes. She ran her fingers through his hair like it scared her to feel something so simple again. When he left, she watched him walk back to his car from the second-floor window. She didn't wave. That night, he opened a message from an unknown number. Heard you've been spending time with your old professor. Interesting. He didn't respond. He deleted it. But his stomach turned. He didn't sleep. Claire didn't answer when he knocked this time, but the door was unlocked, and that said more than anything she could have written. Inside, the lights were low, the same record humming from the player she always used late at night, and he followed the sound until he found her in the kitchen, barefoot, sleeves rolled to her elbows, pouring herself a glass of wine like she'd been expecting him and pretending not to be. She didn't look at him when she spoke, just said his name flatly and asked if anyone saw him come in. He said no, and she finally turned, her eyes sharp again, but tired in a way he hadn't seen before. He asked if she got the message too, and she said yes, 2 of them, one to her work email, and one to her personal phone, both unsigned, both suggesting someone had seen them, someone who wasn't bluffing. Noah asked who she thought it was, and Claire shrugged without conviction. It could have been someone from the lecture, maybe someone from the department, maybe no one important yet but the kind of person who wanted to be. She said these things quietly, then paused and told him that if he had any sense, he would end this now, while there was still a way to make it disappear. He stood there, leaning against the counter, arms crossed, not touching her, not reaching for her like he usually did, and said if she wanted to end it, she could say it straight. She didn't. She just drank the wine and changed the subject. He stayed again that night, but this time it wasn't quiet. They argued around midnight after she checked her phone for the 5th time and he asked if she was expecting someone to barge in. She snapped that not everyone had the luxury of not thinking things through, and he fired back that no one made her open the door. It went on like that for 10 minutes, sharp words, short tempers, 2 people standing too close, trying not to flinch. Then, just when it started to cool, he asked about the married man, and she told him to drop it. He didn't. He wanted to understand, not because he was jealous, but because he couldn't shake the feeling that she had one foot out the door no matter what they said. She raised her voice then, louder than she ever had with him, said that not everything could be solved by understanding it, and then she left the room. He sat in the living room alone for almost half an hour before she came back, wearing one of his old t-shirts she had claimed from a night he forgot to take it home. She sat next to him and didn't apologize, and he didn't ask her to. She just looked over and said, quietly, that it wasn't about who saw them. It was about how many ways this could go wrong, and how few it could go right. He asked why she kept letting it happen then, and she looked at him in a way that made it hard to breathe. You know why, she said. The days that followed didn't smooth anything out. If anything, it made the silence between them heavier. They still met at her place once or twice a week, always late, always after she made sure no one would be around. She never answered his texts during the day. He stopped trying after a while. But the nights, they were something else. They talked about their families, about the years they lost to people they shouldn't have trusted, about the things they hadn't told anyone else. Claire admitted she didn't have many close friends anymore, not since the department drama, not since she started keeping people at a distance just to stay ahead of the next rumor. Noah told her about his mother, how she still thought he was wasting time with Art, how his father barely said 10 words when they saw each other twice a year. Sometimes, they didn't touch at all. They just sat on the couch, facing each other, saying things that felt too big for the space. Then one night, the elevator in her building stopped on the wrong floor. They both heard it. Her hand froze on his chest. The low mechanical thud of the doors opening, then closing, then nothing. She got up slowly, walked to the peephole, stared for a long time, then locked the second bolt. She didn't say anything for a while. Neither did he. The next day, he was at the gallery when he saw someone watching him. It wasn't obvious at first, just a man in a jacket pretending to look at the installations. But he never left the corner. Never picked up a brochure. Just stood there, looking at Noah from time to time, then checking his phone. After 10 minutes, he was gone. Noah walked over to where he'd been standing and found nothing, no card, no note, no name. That night, he told Claire, and she just nodded like it was inevitable. "I think it's Tessa," he said. Or someone she told. Claire said if it was Tessa, then they had less time than they thought. She was connected. Not stupid. "Should we stop?" he asked. She looked at him, jaw tight. "You want to?" "No." "Then you'd better be ready for what comes next." He said he was. But that same night, as they walked to the window and looked out at the quiet street below, a car idled 2 houses down. Headlights off. Engine running. Neither of them spoke. The message arrived at exactly 2:07 p.m. on a Wednesday. Claire was in a faculty meeting, nodding through someone else's budget proposal when her phone buzzed once in her lap. She glanced down. The screen showed a photo grainy, taken from a distance, but sharp enough to make her stomach drop. It was the two of them, her and Noah, leaving her building 3 nights ago. His hand was on her back. Her face was tilted toward him, close enough to erase any doubt about what they were to each other. Underneath the photo, a single line, "Maybe it's time the board sees this." She locked her phone without reacting. The dean, seated across the table, kept talking. Her hand stayed perfectly still on the armrest. She didn't tell Noah until later. That evening, he was already at her place when she walked in, eyes blank, mouth tight. She didn't greet him. She just pulled off her coat, tossed it over the chair, then sat at the table like she needed to brace herself before speaking. "Someone's going to expose it," she said. He looked up. "How do you know?" "Because I just got blackmailed in the middle of a meeting." She slid the phone toward him. He looked at the photo and said nothing. "What do they want?" he asked after a moment. "They didn't ask for anything yet." He leaned back, jaw locked. "That's worse." Claire nodded. "They're waiting for me to panic." He rubbed his face with both hands, then stood and walked to the window, staring out like the street might have answers. She didn't follow him. She didn't try to soothe it. "So what do we do?" he said. "I don't know yet." He turned. "You want me to disappear, just say it." "That's not what I'm saying." "You're thinking it." "I'm trying to keep my job." He stared at her, and she saw it, the anger, the fear, the way his whole posture had changed. She hated that it was happening now, like this, with everything too loud in her head to think straight. He picked up the phone again and stared at the photo, then turned it over like it burned. "I knew it would come out," he said. "Not like this. We've done everything right. We've been careful. Careful doesn't work when someone wants to ruin you." She stood then, walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water she didn't drink. He followed her but didn't speak. The silence between them wasn't the kind that settled. It throbbed. "I can't be the one who gets destroyed over this," she said finally. "I already rebuilt once." I won't do it again. He didn't move. So that's it. She shook her head. It's not a breakup. It's a decision. We tell the truth or we bury it. Noah looked at her, eyes narrowed. If we bury it, we lose each other, he said. If we tell the truth, I lose everything else. Neither of them looked away. The hallway clock ticked in the next room. Someone's going to find out either way, he said. We can't control it anymore. I know. The rest of the night passed without another word. He stayed on the couch. She went to bed without saying goodnight. The next morning, she found him in the kitchen making coffee. He looked like he hadn't slept, and neither had she. She sat at the table while he stood at the counter, back turned, shoulders tense. We tell the truth, she said. He turned, not expecting it. Claire looked at him. If we pretend this didn't happen, I'll hate myself more than I'm afraid of the fallout. I'm tired of hiding from everything. Okay, he said. Later that day, he went to the gallery like nothing had changed. But it had. Tessa cornered him before lunch, her smile thinner than usual. I saw something interesting on the department forum this morning, she said. He didn't take the bait. Did you? A few people are wondering why Claire Morgan keeps leaving early. And who the boy is in her building at all hours. He turned to her, voice even. You've been watching her? Tessa shrugged. People talk. I just listen. He stepped closer. You sent the messages, didn't you? She didn't answer directly. You should be careful, Noah. You're not the one who'll take the hit when this gets out. She will. And she's worked too hard to be taken down by a 21-year-old who thinks he's invincible. That night, Claire didn't meet him at home. She met him at the auditorium, just before the annual faculty reception. She was in a charcoal suit, no jewelry, hair clean and sharp. She looked calm in a way that made him nervous. Are you sure? He asked. I'm done being afraid of myself. They walked in together. People noticed. Faces shifted. Conversations stopped and resumed with quieter tones. She didn't flinch. She stood beside him while the provost gave his speech, while her colleagues made forced smiles, while the dean glanced over 3 times and whispered something to his assistant. Afterward, in the hall outside the main room, someone called her name. It was her department chair. He didn't raise his voice, but his words were hard. Claire. I need to speak with you. Now. She looked at Noah. He nodded once. She followed the chair into a side room and didn't come back out for 30 minutes. When she did, she walked straight past him and said, "Let's go." They left through the back. In the car, she didn't speak. He asked, "What did they say?" "They're opening an investigation." "And you?" "I told the truth." He stared at her. She didn't cry. She just gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary and drove the speed limit all the way home. Claire didn't go into work for 3 days after the reception. She didn't call in. She didn't answer emails. She didn't explain anything to anyone outside of the brief statement she gave the department chair the night everything shifted. Noah stayed at her place the entire time, only leaving once to grab clothes and sketchbooks, which she packed quickly and without thinking. They didn't say much the first day. The second day, they fought over whether she should get a lawyer. By the third, neither of them could ignore the weight pressing down on everything they said, even when they tried to talk about something else. The board had scheduled a hearing. Her colleagues were being asked to give statements. Students had started whispering. The fallout wasn't abstract anymore. It was coming, piece by piece, and they were standing right in the middle of it. That night, she sat on the floor of the living room, back against the couch, hair unbrushed, voice hoarse. Noah was across from her, arms resting on his knees, staring at her like he wanted to pull her out of whatever place she'd sunk into. She told him she didn't regret him, not even for a second, but she hated what it brought back. The constant watching, the way people waited for her to screw up, the reminder that no matter how far she'd come, all it took was one rumor with teeth. He didn't argue. He didn't try to give her the speech he'd rehearsed earlier in the day about standing firm and not backing down. He just listened, because anything else would have sounded useless. "I thought I was done with all of this," she said. "I thought if I stayed quiet long enough, they'd forget what they used to say about me." "They wanted to forget," he said. "You were safer when you didn't make them uncomfortable." She looked up at him. "And now I'm the story again." "You're not the story. You're just the target." He reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. They sat like that until the clock hit midnight, neither of them knowing how much longer this could hold. The hearing was in 2 days. The morning of the hearing, Claire didn't eat. She got dressed in silence, black blazer, plain slacks, hair tied back so tight it looked like a uniform. Noah tried to ask if she wanted him there. She shook her head. "If you show up, it looks like a stunt." "I don't care how it looks." "I do. This isn't about you anymore. It's about whether I walk out with my job." He stood by the door, watching her pack her bag. His hands were clenched. She stopped in front of him and looked up for a long moment before she spoke again. "I don't need you to fight this for me. I'm not trying to fight it for you." "Then what are you doing?" "I'm trying not to lose you." She didn't answer. She kissed his cheek. Then she left. The hearing lasted 4 hours. Noah waited the entire time in a nearby cafe, ignoring his phone, sketching lines that didn't go anywhere. When she finally texted, it was only 3 words: "They're deliberating now." 2 hours later, the second message came: suspension. 6 months. Review after. He didn't ask anything else. He just said, "Come home." When she walked through the door that night, she didn't look like she'd been defeated. She looked like someone who had just realized how much worse it could have been. 6 months wasn't a death sentence. But it wasn't a clean slate either. She poured herself a drink and sat on the couch, shoes still on, staring straight ahead. "They said they were being lenient," she said. "Because it was consensual. Because I was honest. Because of my record. They made it sound like mercy. It wasn't? No. It was damage control." He sat next to her, close this time. "They didn't ask about you," she added. "Not really. You're just the shadow in the story. Maybe that's a good thing. Or maybe it means they've already written the ending." That night, she told him she needed time. Not because she didn't want him, not because she regretted it, but because everything around her had collapsed again, and this time she didn't know how to rebuild with someone else in the picture. She said it slowly, clearly, without softening it. He didn't try to interrupt. He sat there and listened to her say that she didn't want him to wait, and that if he needed to leave, he should. She wouldn't stop him. But she wouldn't pretend she could keep going like before. "I don't want to leave," he said. "Even if I can't promise anything?" "Yes." She looked down at her hands. She didn't speak. "Claire," he said, quieter this time, "you didn't do anything wrong." "I know that," she said. "But it doesn't matter." The next morning, he left her apartment without waking her. He didn't leave a note. He didn't take all his things. Just enough. He walked out into the cold without knowing when he'd come back. And she didn't stop him. A week later, he sent her a message. Just one line: "Are you okay?" She read it. She didn't reply. A month passed. Then 2. One evening in early spring, she walked into the gallery without calling first. She didn't smile. She didn't explain. She just asked if he had time to talk. He led her to the back room. They stood in silence. "I missed you," he said. She looked at him, eyes steady. "I still don't know if I can do this," she said. "I'm not asking you to promise anything." They stood there for another long moment. No one else in the building knew what she meant by showing up. No one had to. Before she turned to leave, she reached out and touched his hand. She didn't say goodbye. And he didn't ask what came next.